Hi everyone, it's Meredith with Soul Navigation, and today we are going to talk about Virgo rising. I'm so excited to bring this video to you. I think Virgos are some of the most misunderstood in the zodiac. So this is especially if you have a Virgo rising, but if you are a Virgo, if you have your South Node in Virgo, if you have a Virgo moon, if you of course have a Virgo sun, Virgo Mercury, Virgo Venus, or Virgo Mars, or a stellium in the 6th house in any sign, or if you have a couple of your primary planets, maybe the sun, maybe the moon in the 6th house, this is for you. Also, if you know a Virgo, you are going to want to listen to this video. I'm going to, in this video, give you a much deeper look at the psychology of what makes a Virgo rising, especially, but you probably will relate to a lot of this video if you have one of those other elements in your chart. I think that a lot of what I'm going to tell you today is going to be new for you. I'm going to go into the shadow side, and hopefully I will build compassion and empathy for those who are involved with Virgo, and for Virgos and Virgo risings especially that suffer from self-loathing, a lack of sense of self. You know, why does Virgo put so much pressure on itself? We're going to crack the code. We're going to go deep, 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 deep inside. I'm a myth buster. My name is Meredith. I own my own company, Soul Navigation, and I invite you to watch my entire Virgo playlist. I think you will find, even if you are not a Virgo, that this video will be jam-packed full of truths, and truths that maybe you didn't even know. Now, this is going to get really raw, and this is going to go really deep. If you truly and genuinely want to understand why your Virgo is the way they are, you'll want to watch this entire video. I'm just going to briefly say, how does the rising sign show up in a person, and what does the rising sign say? It is not just your mask. It's not just the way you look like, although it is both of those things. But it is so critical, and it is so important that you understand what your rising sign actually is. Your rising sign is who you will become in this world. It is. Before we're born, I believe that we choose our parents. We choose the environment that is going to create the foundation of the psychological aspect of our world. Our early influences impact our life, and they create our subconscious patterns. And the rising sign will tell you about these subconscious patterns. The rising sign will show you what your first impressions about life were. The rising sign shows you your entrance into this world, how you literally landed, how you came down the chute and landed. This is also the reenactment. Your rising sign is the reenactment of every new beginning in your life. Every single time you start something new, your rising sign is showing up. What's really important is this shows you your formative years. This shows you your beginning years. I usually say 0 to 12, but now I think it's like 0 to 14 and maybe even 16. This is how your parents shaped you, how they spoke to you, how they interacted with you, and how subconsciously you built your coping mechanism. In this case, you build your coping mechanism in Virgo energy to survive your childhood. Your rising sign is so powerful because it was created subconsciously by reading and reacting to cues when you were an infant, a child, and a kid. And it is built on your fortitude to survive. So it shows you what your childhood subconscious messaging was, and I do say subconscious. So if you don't relate to all of this subconsciously, these were messages that infiltrated your world. Your parents for 12 years, 8 years, 10 years are your whole entire world, maybe only 3 or 5 years. But your parents and what they feed you on a daily basis, emotionally, psychologically, and literally, are going to shape your subconscious and your consciousness. And they will basically subconsciously shape every single thing in your world as an infant, and you will take that subconscious messaging and it will shape every single decision you make going forward in your life. That's how important the rising sign is. Now, as an adult, you can later change the story and you can later change the patterns, usually with a lot of therapy. But in a way, you will see and experience life through the lens of your rising sign that will create massively important patterns in your life and massively important themes in your life and massively important relationships in your life. One of the things I like to say is your soul or your sun sign tells your rising sign, which is your persona, which is the mask that you wear, it's true, which is your coping mechanism, to go out there into the world and bring back to your soul that which it craves. And if the soul, the sun, and the rising sign are synchronized in an easy aspect, a trine or a sextile usually, then it's a pretty easy job for the mask, the rising sign, to do the bidding of the soul's work. And if they're in conflict, let's say you have an extroverted Sagittarius soul, but you have Cancer rising. Well, Cancer rising is kind of baffled around what Sagittarius really wants. And Cancer rising doesn't really easily do the job of Sagittarius. So Sagittarius gets disappointed. So it's very important that when you're listening to this video, and if you are a Virgo rising, that you understand the aspect that Virgo makes to your moon and to your sun. And is this in harmony, or is this in a little bit of conflict, and does it have tension? If it's in conflict and if it has tension, it doesn't mean it can't get done. It just means it probably requires you to step into a whole different silo of yourself. It probably requires a little more effort, and it probably doesn't come as easily. So aspects to your rising sign tell you a very big part of your story. If it's going to be pretty easy or if it's going to be a little rougher. So keep that in mind, because I am going to go into some darker stuff in this video, because Virgos, I want to develop in you, Virgo risings, Virgo moon, Virgo sun, if wherever you have Virgo in your chart, this is where this energy shows up for you. I want to help you develop compassion for yourself. I first have to credit Diana Stone, who is one of my teachers from about 20 years ago. She was a brilliant astrologer. And I recently found notes that I took from some of the classes that I took from her. Diana Stone is one of the most beautiful human beings on the world. She not long ago passed away, but she was a kindred spirit to me in many ways, and I learned a lot from her. So I credit her through this video. One of the big major themes I'm going to talk about with Virgo rising and Virgos is the concept of becoming a mentor to someone in your lifetime. And without mentors, the torch never gets passed. So Diana Stone, I would say, is one of my most cherished mentors. And I also feel that it's very important that you credit your mentors. You credit where you got your information from. Don't just steal their material and take it for yourself. Credit them. So when the torch is passed, we can see the lineage, okay? So Diana Stone, this brilliant astrologer, and there's not a lot of works done by her, but you can research her. She lived here in Washington State. She once said this wonderful thing that I want to credit her with, and I want to pass the torch in her spirit. She said, "Your rising sign does not speak English. It speaks the language of the subconscious, and your subconscious goes out into the world and it finds those childhood patterns that it's used to, and it attracts those same exact patterns that shaped you in childhood back into your life over and over and over. And that subconscious is powerful because it dictates our behavior that is not yet conscious." Isn't that powerful? So your rising sign doesn't speak English. It doesn't speak Russian. It doesn't speak Portuguese. Yeah, it speaks the subconscious. And so learning and understanding and knowing your rising sign is knowing your subconscious patterns. So for Virgo risings, of course, I know you already know your entire generator for your chart, the thing that makes your whole chart go, is Mercury. What is Mercury? The planet of your mind, your mental acumen, and your communication. So it's talkative and it is very, very mental. You need to know, if you're Virgo rising, where your Mercury is in your chart, because an 8th house Mercury is going to act scorpionic, and a 9th house Mercury is going to have Sagittarius flavor. A 12th house Mercury is going to have Piscean flavor. I hope you guys know the natural rulers of the house. If not, you've got to go watch my video on the houses. Please, please, please watch. I think there's part 1 and part 2. Watch my video on the houses. When you understand where Mercury is in the chart and what it's doing, you'll understand how you start every single project, how your whole chart is flavored, right? Your rising sign is also the marker of it's the greatest marker, I should say, of your physical appearance and your physical features. And you must, however, look at the aspects that are made to your rising sign to really understand your appearance. So if you're Virgo rising, but you have Saturn on the ascendant, you're going to look very Saturnian. If you're Virgo rising, but you have Jupiter on the ascendant, you're going to have a Jupiterian flavor. Or if you have Saturn opposing the ascendant, you have to take those aspects into consideration to really understand what you look like. But just to say a couple physical features, Virgo rules the intestines in the body, but Virgo is usually healthy or is very health conscious. They have a relationship to the body that's pretty intense. We're going to go into it, but they're usually fast paced and very quick witted. You're going to see somebody show up who is a very, very intelligent soul. They usually look young. They usually put together. They usually look a little bit more conservative. They usually have very polished or straight lines about them. Not a lot of ruffles, not a lot of prints, not a lot of flamboyancy, not a lot of bright colors. They usually have a little bit of a humility and a reserved quality, and they usually look timeless or classic, like a Capricorn in a way. So these children, when they were young, they got the message that you need to be smart in order to survive this family and in order to survive this world. And you were also told you must have manners and you must have good manners. You also got the message that you need to understand how to show up at every different situation in this world in order to serve this world well. You also were told that you need a craft or a talent or a skill. You probably needed or just did teach yourself or learn a skill set that helped you survive life. Let me shine the light on their gifts. Virgos are like the mechanic or the editor. They are the discerners of the zodiac, and they are here to focus on the small, discerning details of life. They are here in the bigger picture to eventually, as my other mentor, Stephen Forrest, has taught me numerous times. He has really broadened the concept of Virgo energy, and I like to credit him as well. They're here to become the mentors in life. So first, maybe they become the apprentice to learn something. And I see Virgos as here to evolve into deep self-mastery, mastering themselves. And when they do so, perfecting self, if you will, which means becoming the very best version of myself that I can be, then taking that mastery, that skill set, and passing it on to another and teaching others. That is mentorship. It takes lifetimes to achieve self-mastery, but Virgos, by the end of their life, they become, usually if they're self-developed, so highly capable, so competent. They are the wordsmiths, they are the editors, They are literally the mechanics that can fix basically any problem you have. They are the programmers, they are the technicians, and in a grounded way, they're even healers. They fix things, make things better, they optimize life, they optimize infrastructures. Virgo risings, if you think of Steve Jobs, Kurt Cobain. Kurt Cobain wanted to shine the light on the broken bits of society and was angry about it and had a very Pisces type life, but he was Virgo rising, and Steve Jobs, although a lot of people see him in his Aries Mars energy, he's a Pisces with Virgo rising as well, just like Kurt Cobain. But look at what he did with the iPhone. He wasn't the programmer, Steve Wozniak was. And I also believe I think he was a Virgo rising, if I remember that correctly. And he did all of the guts inside of the iPhone. Think about Virgo as the digestive system and the intestines. And that's basically the guts. So think of a book, and the words are the guts of the book. Think of a car, and the mechanics of the engine are the guts of the engine. Think of software as the guts of the operating system, right? So I want you guys to think of, as ironic as this is, as Virgo as the guts. The inside teeny weeny details, managing them, navigating them, optimizing them, fixing them, tearing them apart, and rebuilding them, being able to separate the pieces that we need from the pieces that we don't need, refining their skill set so deeply. They even do this with cooking. And if you think about it, food fills our guts, right? So they're very into food usually. A lot of Virgos are foodies. So usually by the end of their life, they're here perfecting their skill set, becoming so highly competent in the details of life that they make the rest of the zodiac kind of look like incompetent fools sitting next to them. Virgos have learned to put others first. If you're so lucky to be loved by a Virgo, a Virgo can ruin you, because nobody is ever going to take care of you, ever, as well as a Virgo does. And Virgo rising, if you are so lucky to be loved by a Virgo rising, you really are a blessed soul. They are nurturers in pragmatic ways, giving you exactly what you need, even before you know you need it. Virgo risings have an independence about them. They are not needy, and they have this extreme fear around being dependent on other people. So they move pieces around to be of service to others, and they ask so little of their partners. I mean, they really do. They are one of the least neediest signs in the zodiac. They also are hypochondriacs because they are so painfully afraid of getting ill and needing somebody to care for them. They just won't let you. Have you ever tried to care for a Virgo? And tell me in this video in the comments below, if you are a Virgo rising, where is your sun and moon and Mercury? Those are so important to know, to see if your rising sign cooperates with your mission in life, or if it is a little bit more critical, a little bit of a tougher nut to crack, a little bit more of a stickler, and a little bit more of the shadow side or the challenge side of Virgo, because it's uncomfortable. If it is highly anxious, that's another thing about Virgo risings. They really have to manage high levels of anxiety. But they are pragmatic givers, so dearly loving in pragmatic, tangible ways. You are very well taken care of in a pragmatic, earthy, grounded way, like a Taurus. But because Virgos are really focused on improvement, I think you could feel like you get this high quality care with Virgos. For example, they'll put 400 thread count sheets on your bed when you never even knew there was such a thing. You were sleeping on straw in the barn the whole time until you met your Virgo, and they got you into silk sheets. That's Virgo, right? I mean, they're wonderful like that. Virgos have such brilliant minds. They have such detailed minds. They have like photographic memories. Virgo risings are, like I said before, the discerners. What is the discerner? Well, these people know good from great, great from excellent, excellent from fabulous, fabulous from super fabulous, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious fabulous. Virgos know the difference between bad and awful, you know, awful and disgusting, disgusting and gruesome, and they know all the different layers. And so by the end of their life, they've come to be able to fine tune every single thing into its mastery. So they just look so skilled, you know, across the gamut. They can do everything. They can do anything. If you're in a position where you want to truly and genuinely make something better, hire a Virgo. And please, please, please go watch my video called The 3 Most Intelligent Signs of the Zodiac and learn more about why this sign is so darn brilliant. You know, Virgos usually stand behind the scenes. They're probably the guy making the music who never got the credit. They are probably the editor where the author has the idea, but the editor really fleshed out the book. They are probably the director or maybe running production. Maybe they designed the set. And thought of every single little detail for the movie. But a lot of times Virgos do not, I don't want to say they don't need the credit, but they oftentimes don't get the credit. They oftentimes are overlooked, or they live so much in the background that they are oftentimes recognized as a support person or as a person who made this possible, you know, but they're oftentimes not in the limelight, with the exception, of course, of Beyonce. One of the things that I think Virgos really need is they're here on earth to truly learn to value themselves through mastering their crafts, mastering their skill set, which is coming into and stepping into a love and an appreciation and a respect for self. And that is basically learning to tamp down anxiety and step into having pure peace with self. And if you think about when something is perfect, and we know nothing is perfect, but just think of this for a minute. When your bedroom is clean and it's in its perfect state, think of the peacefulness that brings you. When you've set the dining room table for a party and it's just perfectly the way you want it, think of how the anxiety just leaves. When your car is just immaculate and it's brand new and it smells like new car and there's no dents, there's no tears, there's no spills, the peacefulness that brings you, right? When you are fully satisfied with the outcome of the project that you've been working on and it's in its perfect state for that time being, peace happens. And there's a deep self-respect. So when I talk about valuing self, mastering self, loving self, accepting yourself in your perfect state as you are right now, you download peace. And this is the goal for Virgo. And by the way, Virgo risings, Virgo moons, Virgos, sixth house suns, tell me how hard this is to do. Is this even doable? I know this is hard for Virgos. When Virgo rising or Virgo can stand in their gorgeous, beautiful virtue, this is when they have arrived, when they have deep, deep self-respect for their gifts, and when they share those gifts with others. True appreciation of self, self-appreciation, even when the world doesn't align with that appreciation. So when the world is not appreciating you, but you still are appreciating self, deep self-value, and mastering your skill set is what the true love of the soul is. And that, my friends, is Virgo rising and Virgo's lesson. As I mentioned before, what I learned through Stephen, my teacher, is how he describes Virgo as the embodiment of the mentor. Virgo oftentimes get stuck in a master servant role. And for a lot of their life, they stay in the service role or the servant role or the apprentice role. But truthfully, they're only supposed to do that until they learn their skill set and they reach their full potential. And then they truly can become the world's mentors. And they're not just the sidekick anymore. They're not just the drummer in the band, if you will, the person in behind. But when they step into their true fullness and they're the front man. We are truly no one without a mentor. If you didn't have a mentor, you would learn nothing. Let that really, really sink in. I really want you to think about that, okay? So if you're a Virgo rising, I want to know, please leave a comment below. What is your skill set that you're trying to master? What are you good at? Do you know yet what you're good at? And who was your greatest mentor in life? Who has taught you the most? Please give credit to that person below. Just put it out there in the world and tell us. And tell us what they actually gave you, because this is the true higher octave of Virgo energy that a lot of people don't talk about. And Stephen has talked a lot about this, and I'm so grateful for him sharing this. And I want to pass his work through me onto you. Like I said, I want you to think about the profundity of what I just said, how we are no one if we don't have a mentor. Where do you have Virgo in your chart? Because that is where you will become a mentor. That is where Spirit is asking you to become a great mentor to this world. Also, look to the cusp of your 6th house and you will see what kind of mentor you will attract and you will become. So if you have Capricorn on the 6th house cusp, you're going to attract Saturnian or older men as your mentors, and you will become potentially very wise and sharing your wisdom with some sort of authority as a Capricorn leader. So I want to ask you, who do you want to pass your torch on to? I hope to pass my astrology knowledge torch on to you. Let's talk about some reasons why this energy, Virgo rising, is so hard. And let's build compassion, love, and empathy for these beautiful souls, because they kind of suffer in silence and they never let you know about it. One myth buster is a lot of people will say, oh, Virgos, are perfect, or Virgos, strive to be perfect. No, Virgos are not perfect. But this is how I want you to think about it. And if you're on my channel, I think you're here for a little deeper astrology, not just stereotypes. We're going to go past the stereotypes, okay? But sometimes it's a little hard to swallow, so just bear with me. Just go with me. Virgos are not perfect. I don't even know if Virgos are really trying to be perfect, because Virgos are smart enough to know that perfection is just a mirage that you chase. But think about it this way. Virgos have a relationship with perfection that creates an intense pressure cooker pressure inside of their soul. It's just like Virgos are under pressure, coming down on me, under pressure. That just came into my head. That's their theme song. Under pressure. Who sings that song? I don't even remember. Coming down on me. Yeah. Okay, that's Virgo. They're literally in a crock pot, steaming full of pressure to perfect their worlds, perfect their bodies, perfect their knowledge, perfect their skills, perfect their talent, perfect their children, perfect their home, perfect their bodies. But they are not perfect, but they are on some mission, right? They have a relationship with the concept of how things need to be just so, and they strive for that goal. They're super ambitious that way. And Virgos are critical mostly of themselves because of this relationship to perfection that they have. And when you have a relationship to perfection, you can so easily see all that is not perfect, all that is not just so, all that is not quite right. And so they're sort of obsessed with improving. So instead of the word perfect, think of the word improvement or optimizing. They love to optimize life. They love to improve life. So how did they get this way? They grew up in a childhood where there were markers of perfection presented to them. And they learned at a really young age how to discern and what was good and what was bad, what was right and what was wrong. And they also learned the hard way when things were wrong. And somebody was teaching them their concept of right and wrong, right? So they were getting pummeled and infiltrated with probably parental influence, or whoever raised them, their environment was saying black and white, yes and no, good and bad, right and wrong. And so they developed critical minds. And voila, the critic was born. Yes. You will also see that Virgo risings were born with very, very big messaging that you need to be of service to others, or you need to serve me. And their worth came from their self-worth as a tiny infant, a toddler, a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, even 14, and it goes on, to help, to fix, to accommodate, and to behave, and to serve another person. And if you didn't do this, guess what happened? There would be great shame to be felt. Tell me, Virgo risings, if I'm right. Shame is at the core of Virgo. Shame. And that's why they're afraid sometimes to take a risk, to put themselves out there, to speak up, to ask for a raise, to get what they want, to need somebody, because they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to be told no. They don't want to be rejected. They don't want to feel that original shame. Virgos have shame and guilt for crimes they didn't even commit. Virgos have guilt and shame if they're not in service to you, if they did not help you, even when it's not their business to even actually help you, but they were programmed, they were wired to be helpful or be shamed. And if you have Virgo South Node, tell me you don't feel this. Tell me you don't feel this. This is so Virgo South Node, and I really want you guys to go watch my videos on the nodes. They're in the live section on my channel, but please go watch them. They're really good. They're super deep. They have a lot of content, a lot of real raw talk in it. I think you'll like them. Also, I want to tell you, if you don't know where Virgo is in your chart, oh my gosh, buy either my starter package, or if you already have that, or if you're a super supporter, by the way, I love you. You might already have gotten that, or you might already know the basics of your chart. Go get the Astro Gold Advanced Package, and it will tell you all of the rulers of every single house, and it is so, so worth it. You just can't learn astrology without getting your gorgeous natal chart. And if you get one of those reports, the advanced package, the Astro Gold Advanced Package, comes with 2 reports. It is so good, and it shows you your progression. So it is advanced, but it's fabulous. So I just highly recommend you either get the starter package off of my website. You can just scroll down below to get the shop tab, or the Astro Gold package. They're so good, and it will help you figure all this out. You know, when you're 1 year old or 2 years old, even 3 or 4, you're not thinking about being perfect. You're not thinking about being kind. You're not thinking about working hard or having a healthy body, or, you know, am I growing a bicep, or am I strong enough? You're not thinking about those things at 2 years old or 3 years old or even 4. But these messages are being created in your early childhood environment by your brothers, by your sisters, by your aunts, by your uncles, by your grandparents, by your parents. You will bump into these themes by teachers over and over, by your mentors over and over and over. And you're going to develop, as a Virgo rising, tell me if this is true, you are going to develop a preoccupation with your body. And Virgo risings, most of them, maybe not all of them, but most of them are really body conscious. And it might not be your own judgment about your body, especially as an innocent child. And these patterns were being infiltrated in you at the subconscious level, even before you were aware of them. But your parents' environment, or their opinions, I should say, eventually would make you self-conscious about your physical self. And Virgo is very preoccupied with the biology of the body. Virgo risings and lots of Virgos have parents that were overly preoccupied with body, diet, nutrition, fitness, health, wellness. And if it wasn't modeled for you in a positive way, it could really bring upon negative patterns to food, to your physicality, to deep self-loathing, and it could create subliminal messages that my body or my health is flawed. Now, I pray you got positive imaging around it and patterns and messages, and that you just have a great relationship to your physicality, and that you and your body and what were just celebrated. I pray that was the case. A lot of eating disorders with Virgos and Virgo risings. I don't want to create that out there. I'm just saying I have compassion for them because they received subliminal messaging that something wasn't quite right. Now, sometimes it can show up like this. I'll give you a couple different examples, but sometimes we get a mom or a parent that rejects their own body or their own gender. And when the role model of the child shows that they have a problem with their own body, the child inherits that type of programming subconsciously. So if I'm the mother and I'm walking around saying, oh, I'm fat, oh, I'm ugly, oh, look how fat I am, oh my God, I'm just, or my skin is too dark, or my skin is too light, or I'm the wrong ethnicity, or, why wasn't I a boy? My parents wanted a girl. If I walk around talking like that, I give that problem to my child. Did you suffer from this, Virgo risings? Tell us if you can relate to this, and Virgos too. And oftentimes we see the shadow side of this popping up for girls and boys. Again, this isn't all people. This is just if Virgo rising is in conflict, Virgo moons too. And we often get this messaging from the family or from our role models that reject us on a biological level. And Diana Stone talked a lot about this. I learned this from her, and oh my God, I appreciate this from her. And I want to pass this on because I thought this was just such a radical breakthrough concept for Virgo. But a lot of Virgo risings felt like their parents wanted the opposite gender. Like, oh, my parents were trying for a boy and they got me a girl, and I'm my dad's boy. I am a boy, but I'm not the rugged masculine boy type that my dad wanted. Or their gender or their sexuality is confused, or it's not as appreciated. So maybe I'm not the kind of boy my dad wanted. Maybe I don't want to fish and hunt. Maybe I want to ice skate. My dad can't relate. Or maybe I'm not the kind of girl that my mom or dad wanted. I don't want to watch Dancing with the Stars and do makeup and play with dolls. I want to go learn how to shoot. I want to go join the Marine Corps, something like that. Or maybe I'm gay and my family wanted me to be straight and have babies, and I don't want to have babies. Something at the biological level feels rejected to a Virgo rising. So like King Henry VIII, let's talk about him. England, 1500s, late 1400s, King Henry VIII had mostly boys. He had like 4 to 6 boys or something, and all of them died young, died at birth, and were stillborn. And he ended up with 2 daughters, the Queen Elizabeth I and Queen Mary. And you don't think those 2 queens felt every single day that they should be men, they should be boys? They didn't have queens running England. And so Queen Elizabeth, ironically, Queen Elizabeth I was a Virgo. Can you believe that? And she had to act like a man. She had to, in a way, become a man. And she never married. And she never had children. And so, study her life. That life is so Virgoian. And she was supposed to be a boy. And her King Henry VIII rejected Mary and sent her off to go live over there, Scotland, sorry. And I need to know my history better. I need a refresher. But what I'm saying is he really rejected his daughters, and he just had no choices. He was out of choices. So Queen Elizabeth became masterful and wonderful. And she was not behind the scenes, was she? She was the front man for her band. Yeah. She was a badass. And she's a fascinating soul, isn't she? But she was a Virgo, I think September 7th or something. I can't recall, but September birthday. But we do feel some really, really, really serious problems when we feel rejected at the biological level. And I know this isn't every single Virgo, but if you have heavy Virgo, or if you're Virgo rising and your Virgo operates in or has experienced the challenging parts of being Virgo, if you feel sad or broken or wounded or underdeveloped in your formative years because of this programming or messaging, my heart and my soul go out to you. And I just hope so much that this video helps you rise above that, because those are not your real problems and issues. Those are problems that another person or the environment placed upon you. But there is not one damn thing wrong with you, biologically, physically, mentally, or soulfully. And Virgo, don't believe those messages. I hope that you didn't receive those messages as a Virgo rising or a Virgo, because those are so painful. You know, we feel so rejected. They're hard to get over. And if you have the guts to share with us or to speak on this part of Virgo rising, I would be so grateful. And let's make it a safe environment for people to really express themselves if they did feel this. Other ways in which this problem could show up is where, you know, girls feel like they were born into a system where the boys were overvalued, like I just said about Queen Elizabeth, where they got acknowledged, where I should say the boys got acknowledged, or the boys got to go to college, or the boys got to learn stuff, and the girls had to serve or be in service, just be a good girl, or a family where the different sexes were treated differently. The boys were treated differently than the girls, and that the system was unfair to them because of their biology, or if they were discriminated against because of their skin tone or their ethnicity, or for reasons that you cannot change. You know, you cannot change your skin tone. You cannot change your gender. Well, you can. You actually can, right? But what I'm saying is, as an infant, you can't. You have to wait until it can be your decision. But sometimes the boys struggled with themselves, Virgo rising boys struggled with themselves biologically too, like I said, where maybe their sexuality is in question, or maybe their body wasn't what they wanted it to be. And maybe they struggled again, like not being the masculine young man that their fathers or their mothers needed. Or they can struggle with their gender issues, or, you know, maybe they didn't, maybe they were second born and the firstborn child was favored, or maybe the girl in the family was the princess and, you know, he's just the third born and felt like the old shoe. But there can be also in early childhood a lot of resentment between the men and the women in this family, where mom resents dad and dad doesn't respect mom, and the brothers get preferential treatment, and dad maybe, I don't know, is off and a philanderer, and mom's at home being of service or being a servant or a slave to her family, shoring it all up. There's a lot of martyrdom that is seen inside a Virgo rising's life. So oftentimes the mother can martyr herself, or father can martyr themselves and make the children feel guilty. And it might not even be a conscious thing. It might be that there's 10 children, too many mouths to feed, and mom is just a slave to all this. And so as the Virgo child, you don't want to burden mom, or mom is sick or ill or not well and can't function well. And then the Virgo child feels guilty for having any needs. Virgo risings learn not to have any needs. If I need you, I'm going to be disappointed. So I'll just take care of everything myself. And by the way, I'll take care of you and you and you and you too. So oftentimes this child, in the feeling rejection, turns into a servant in order to become of value. If I'm of value to you because I'm serving you, then you won't truly reject me. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Go back and repeat that. That's really, really deep, and that's painful. And so Virgo rising has this innate shame of just existing. I'm not the right color. I'm not the right gender. I'm not the right height. I'm not the right body type. I'm fat. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not. And so they go into one thing that they can control, and that's their minds. And they overdevelop their minds and their thinking, and they become brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because and it's born out of a rejection at the biological self. Do you realize you cannot change the biological piece of you? Not easily. I mean, we're learning now in 2021 that, yeah, we can, but this is very complicated, right? Very complicated. At the very worst stage, children, Virgo rising children, can feel like not only were they rejected by their environment, but their environment, their parents, their family, wherever they grew up, didn't accept them, didn't like them, didn't always want them. And Virgo risings at the lowest, most broken level can feel like the house, the other children, the neighborhood kids were all more important than me. And even lower than that, if it goes lower than that, sadly, they can feel like they were even hated or despised, unlovable and unwanted. And that is heartbreaking. Now, I know not every Virgo rising will feel that, but that is true for many. Their relationship to perfection paints a facade, right? And this is why they develop in themselves becoming superwoman or superman, a phenomenal mom, running the PTA, the president of the Habitat for Humanity, the workaholic who runs 5 miles every day and is a skinny mini and drinks her green drinks and does Pilates and yoga at noon and holds down a corporate job and raises her family and packs a school lunch and drives the kids to and fro and is absolutely exhausted with life. This is the workaholic oftentimes. And the dad could be the same way, being the superhero, the perfect dad, the hard worker, the guy that does it all, shoulders the bills, the careers, the phenomenal father, teaching my kids how to drive, getting my kids off to college, making sure the house is nice, making sure we have the house on the hill and, making sure all the bills are paid and all that, or whatever. It's not always rich and wealthy, but you know what I mean. Just superhero dad that's doing it all to keep the shame at bay. And becoming the facade of the perfect person. It's important to not see your Virgo as a perfect person. It's more important to see the flaws in your Virgo and love them openly anyway. Like, I see that flaw and I love that flaw in you. And that flaw in you is my very favorite thing in you because it makes you human, it makes you authentic, it makes you real, and it makes you so damn lovable. I could just scoop you up and you are scrumpdilly-icious. Yeah. Virgos don't hear things like that, right? They don't even want you to see the flaw, but there's a relationship to productivity and to hard work. This can be role modeled for them, and that can be role modeled, and that's why they're that way. But they may have role models in their family that, like, life is joyless. Life is work, and all we do is work. And so they have a lot of stamina for joyless jobs and joyless relationships and joyless marriages and joyless times because they oftentimes grew up in a family that was worka. and then work more. Work hard, do the floors, do the chores, do the, study hard, work, and work and work. Work to improve, work to fix, work to make things better. And they often hid behind all that work and effort. They oftentimes grew up feeling like they had less joy than other kids, other people. Other people had more joyful times than our family. My parents had to work so hard. My dad was a workaholic. My dad was never home. My mom always worked. I had a job at 14. Virgo rising, tell me how old you were when you had your first job and what your first job was, right? I'm sure you could have had a paper route. You could have worked at the Domino's Pizza. I'm sure Virgo risings worked young, or they were studying their butts off, or they were involved in every activity at school. Oh, I was a football player, and I was in AP classes, and I took some honor classes, and I got a scholarship, and I played the violin, and I took care of my parents, and I had a younger brother, and I rode the bus, and I'm exhausted doing this Virgo video. Just imitating the hard work of the Virgo. I'm not a Virgo, but God bless you, Virgos. Virgos have saved my life tenfold. This is why Virgos can do the mundane. This is why Virgos can have a life that's not glitzy and glamorous and, filled with flamboyant fun. This is why they can gravitate towards not so fascinating subjects in life, because they were taught to prioritize work. It's either a survival mechanism in order to get respect and to be of value and to be of service to somebody in their family, or they saw it and they mimicked that. A couple Virgo risings, Uma Thurman is a Virgo rising. I'd love to know about her childhood. I don't know anything about her childhood. If you guys do, put it in the notes below. But she looks like a Virgo rising, and she looks like perfection, doesn't she? Yeah, that's a mask. That's a mask. But also Marlene Dietrich was a Virgo rising, and I know a lot of you won't know her, but she was a very famous actress in the 1930s, and in 1999 I found out that she was voted the 9th greatest female star of all time by the American Film Institute. And she was a cabaret star and actress. She was highly iconic, very, very beautiful, and she was really interesting because in the 30s, this was really rare, she was known to dress in men's clothing. And she was also known to be, to have a style that was androgynous. And androgyny is, both male and female, like you can't tell, is it male or female? And so it was this mixed, this androgynous to high glam. She really is kind of known for cross-dressing. And she was one of the first to come out as a kind of cross-dresser, if you will. It's loose, and many of today's designers, reference her as an iconic legend with this, and she was Virgo rising. And so you'll see that there's a lot of gender swapping, gender identification issues or themes, I should say, with Virgo or Virgo rising. Sharon Stone is Virgo rising, Renee Zellweger is Virgo rising, and Keanu Reeves is Virgo rising. And if you look at the reserve in all of them, maybe Sharon Stone the least, but her upbringing was very, very interesting. And Sharon doesn't have any children. I don't think Renee does either. Interesting. That's very, very interesting. You guys will have to correct me if they do have kids. I don't think they do. You're going to see, and you can see it in those examples, somebody who's modest, somebody who's reserved, somebody who comes with kindness, somebody who has good manners. Virgo rising got the message, don't brag about yourself, don't be cocky. They're the sign after Leo, so they kind of self-correct when it comes to self. So there's not a self-focus. There's a other focus. Virgo is the sign that is really focused on other people, a lot like Libra is. And they learned loud and clear that it's tacky to be self-absorbed, it's tacky to be showy, it's tacky to be loudmouthed and have bad manners and be unrefined and talk only about yourself. And so oftentimes they don't even reveal one damn thing about themselves. And people are like, oh, wow, it was just so fascinating meeting you and so fascinating talking to you. And they didn't say one damn thing about themselves. They might have talked about something that they do or work that they've done, but they don't talk about self very often. They were also taught manners of etiquette. These people usually have high etiquette, and they probably know the salad fork from the dinner fork. Do you guys all know the salad fork from the dinner fork? Right? Yeah, no, because you're not a Virgo rising. We're just Neanderthals. We eat with our hands. And and they know how to like serve cream from the little creamer, right? But you'll see that Virgos are brilliant at learning, at discerning, and at communication. Their superpower is they are super witty. They are very funny. They have a knack for self-deprecating jokes, just like a good Virgo should. They have a wit. They're fast and they're funny. They're not as fast as Gemini. They're not as neurotic as Gemini. They're a little bit more grounded because of that earth, and they move a little bit slower, but their minds are super quick, fast paced. Oh my God. And it's because they're smart. They're on to the next sentence that I'm already saying, even before I say it. I think Virgo risings are much more polished than Virgos. I know a lot of sloppy Virgos. I'm telling you, a lot. I actually know more sloppy Virgos than I know polished Virgos. But Virgo rising, I think, has the desire to create the mask, the persona, to look, you know, refined and perfect, or the relationship to perfection. They have to show up a certain way or act that persona that is very discerning and polished in order to survive their world, right? If they're going to be in service to other people, they need to look the part where I want them to serve me, right? Let's just say I don't, but if I'm showing up in service to you, I have to look a certain way to have you want me to serve you. So see, it all operates in this subconscious way, and I want to serve you because I know you won't reject me through my productive service. Virgos want the details to be right, and Virgo risings want these physical details to be right. They strive to be correct. They strive to be right. And they can kind of come across as critics or know-it-alls, or like put you down if you're wrong, because they're very dialed into the facts, because the facts are right. And being right is being important. And every time they're right, they feel like, I'm of value. That's how they feel self-worth, is to be correct. So they don't like taking a lot of risks. They do value high functioning with both the body and the mind. And they will become experts at analyzing all the parts to a system. They can easily, once again, they can easily see what's wrong and what's imperfect about you, about your world, that's for sure, and about themselves. But they strive, they honor, they pride themselves on being able to take problems apart and put things back together again to become even better, they are solution oriented. And so Pisces is the opposite sign. And so this is the service axis. Pisces, Virgo, they are the servants. They are the servers. They serve, they perform a service to others. They're also, that's healers, healing the body, and Virgo, healing the spirit or the soul. There's a lot of shamans and a lot of body healers, Reiki masters, nurses, energy healers with Virgo Pisces axis. What I'd like to say is, if you're loved by a Virgo, you're loved by somebody who is other person centeredness. So the focus is on you. And that's why you're kind of lucky. They like to learn about other people and learn about what other people need, and then bring those needs to the forefront. And so what happens is they start to, when they're unhealthy, or when they're involved with an unhealthy person that will take advantage of them, their own needs start to erode at a really young age, because they focus and they learn a high focus and a high awareness to others. And so they usually master the art of serving you in some capacity at a really young age. And in time, they find partners that basically need someone. They find needy partners that need fixing up, need help, need assistance, and they become the great rescuer. And when they rescue people and fix people over and over and over and over in life, they start to feel like, wow, this is my value in life. So they give pieces of themselves away in all the energy and all the band-aids it takes to fix people and put Humpty Dumpty back together again, over and over and over again, right? And so they turn into the martyr. They literally martyr their lives away, or there's a tendency to martyr their lives away because they attract people that are in great need. These are the rehabilitators of the zodiac, and their identity often is enmeshed in overcompensating by giving too much, by loving too much, and they end up giving themselves away and this resentment sinks in, and they've sacrificed themselves down to a little tiny nub. And they're exhausted in the process of just healing others that will take advantage of their kindness and of their goodness. And Virgos, in their best energy, are the truest saints of the zodiac. They are angelic. They are so beautiful. Don't take advantage of your Virgos. And so they become sort of a victim in this childhood pattern that has shaped their lives, being taken advantage of. And this is the piece of Virgo that needs to be healed. They must be with somebody who allows them to put their needs first. They need to learn to heal those broken parts and put self first without feeling bad, guilty, or shameful. They need to overcome probably their parents' conditioning of them. They usually have at least one parent that was not internally deeply fulfilled in their own life, that wasn't living a life of their own fullest potential. And they role modeled what martyrdom or sacrifice looked like and felt like, and they wanted, or they had that same expectation of their child too. Now, they may not have complained about it, but they definitely saw their parent, devote themselves to others, to the church, to the school, to the children, to people in need. And so this messaging was taught. It can be subtle, but it can also be very, very, very quietly loud. That is a behavior, being in service to others, that is ironically really, really admired. And you get a lot of credit for being, so sweet and good to other people. God, you're so giving, right? You're so loving. Oh, who will do it? My Virgo rising friend will do it. Yeah. And so, you're bringing over the chicken noodle soup to the sick person, the sick friend. You're helping a person clean their house. You're the person who volunteers to help move my estate. And yeah. And so it's very admired. It's an easy behavior to model with good intentions. But then after years of doing this, you see how you get shortchanged, and it can really erode self-confidence. I guess I just have a question, like, why do we admire martyrdom? It leads me to that question, because it can be so painful to watch and see. But why does the world admire this level of martyrdom? I don't know. I wonder. Leave me a thoughtful comment below. And also, I want to tell you guys can get readings from me or anybody on my team at Team Soul Navigation. The readers here are so amazing. Just go to soulnavigation.com, click on book a reading. If you want to learn more about your chart, it's just so fascinating. Unraveling the secret code that lives inside your soul. Like, why are you the way you are? Isn't it fascinating? It's such a fascinating conversation to have with you. And I love doing these videos. And I'm hoping to finish my rising sign series for you all. I know I'm a little slow. So Virgos just can work themselves to death. And Virgos, as I said, they are, I feel like Virgos have come into this world where their ego was smaller and it needed to learn to grow. They were born into a system that needs ego lifting, ego growing, ego boosting, and they need to find experiences, especially as an adult, that will grow their ego, not shrink their ego, that will be of value to give them power and recognition, not to shrink away from it. But, they automatically, if you have just pure Virgo energy, you're not called, or you don't need large levels of recognition or center stage. You do need respect. There might be more ego-driven sun signs out there, or signs out there that just constantly override you. And so you can end up feeling quite invisible. You can end up feeling overlooked. My Virgo rising homework assignment for all you Virgo risings is to go out there in the world and ask for more. Ask for more of what you need. More time, more money, more love, more hugs, more recognition, more affection, more spotlight, whatever it is you need, because it's challenging for you to go out and ask for your needs. It's so uncomfortable. I get it. Push yourself a little bit. It is the only way you will heal those little bits inside of you. I know it feels like bad manners. It feels like uncomfortable, but it's not braggy and it's not cocky to ask for more. Trust me, you deserve it. I just want you to know it. Virgos really come into themselves when they fall in love with the work that they do. When they want to do and are capable of doing work that matters in the world, when they can become the mentor and they can take their pragmatic skill set, master it, and pass it on to another person. That's when they become healthy. That's when they become the very best versions of themselves, mentally, physically, and soulfully. And that is when Virgo is contributing to the world, doing work that they love, when they can tamp down anxiety and find peace, and they can live in their glory.